Michael, do you mind? pointing
Carpet
it
and
out?
stuff.
Okay, welcome to the special meeting of the council. The date is April the 1st, the time is 7:04. With that, we'll call the meeting to order. The second item is the closed portion of the meeting. We are going to start with the open portion of the meeting, and then we'll move to the closed following that, subject to council's approval. Is council fine with that?
Just further suggestion, is there any way we can do the open recess, the open meeting, special council meeting, do the open, middle of the whole meeting, and then do the closed council meeting?
You can go back in.
Yeah, hopefully I have no problem with that.
Absolutely, yeah. It's the world's your oyster. It doesn't-
Do all the open.
Are we
and go
going to
back
have
all
to
the
switch?
We have to
So
switch
every-
websites,
Uh,
yeah.
That's, well, we'll have to switch websites or links.
To go back
It
into
just
the,
means residents can see the open stuff in one set.
Entirely up to council. How you wish to-
I would like to do it that way.
I'll keep them loose.
Okay. I'm fine
Perfect,
with
yeah, I'm fine with that.
that. Okay, with that, we'll move to the adoption of the agenda. Any amendments?
Yeah.
Councillor Abbott?
We have a on-table report about the heat pumps in the hall. Got some dollars in it, which means we'd have to go into the closed meeting, I guess, because it's got people's quotes in here. Okay, so suggest we'll put that in the closed meeting. And then we'll have to just report out. That's in the discussion, you know,
special meeting or committee of the whole?
special. We need to
Okay,
make it
so we'll
good.
say that.
Okay,
All right,
Okay,
any other items?
Michael had one, the
yes,
memorial. That was for the
no, not
The
the
mural?
mural.
the mural,
Memorial,
Yeah.
the mural, I mean, sorry.
Yeah.
Um,
but it didn't, yeah. So the Lions Bay Avenue mural for under the underpass,
Okay,
the motion in that regard.
any other
So like I
items?
said, we'll put that under section 14 new business.
Section 14.
I should say you will.
Called the Two Sisters Mural Project.
Okay, any others? No, all in favor with the amendments proposed?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, opposed, motion carried. Councillor Prout and Councillor Cunliffe seconded.
And yes.
Okay, we'll move to public participation. Anyone in the gallery like to speak? Please take the podium.
Evening, Mayor, Council, my name is Fort Regatta. I have a couple of questions. First, oddly enough, the beach park. So I believe February the 19th, we sat in these chambers and listened to the architect, Mick Gray, and the contractor, Eurohouse, debating, putting numbers together. Mick Gray wanting more money to put the project on our property, which I found quite remarkable. But all that aside, they did say they'd get back to council in 2 weeks' time with some numbers. And I'm just curious if you've received those numbers, or is this still ongoing? Keep in mind, we're talking about a washroom and a covered picnic space. These things can be designed, honestly, in a weekend. Costing would be done in an afternoon. I just like some clarity why this is taking so long. Second question. Unless you want to speak to that now, or
Mr. Blackwell?
I would defer to council on this one.
Well,
okay, yeah.
Yeah, Councillor Broughton.
We have received some information back. You were involved in the meeting where there
Right.
was input being
Yep.
provided. And Mr. Bray has gotten back and sought a bit more information.
Mhm.
I think he's been provided some information. As a result, we did receive some information today, which we have not yet discussed.
I see,
So it's moving along.
it is moving.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
I think we can say we've got a budget and that information, but we're having a time to review.
I see. Okay, great, thank you. Second question is to do with, and I believe you have one coming before you tonight, a development variance permit for a front yard setback relaxation. Being the chair of the Board of Variance, why are we not seeing these anymore? What's going on here? This is a very simple application. Council should not be burdened with this. Due respect, council may not even have the credentials to understand some of the bylaws. So why are these very simple Board of Variances going through council now? Anybody speak to that?
Mr. Blackwell, speak that.
Again, so as in every local government jurisdiction, both options exist. An applicant has the opportunity to choose which they go to. I will say, as a footnote to this, the Board of Variance structure is an antiquated piece of legislation.
But it's mandated and it's required to be in every municipality.
Very true, it's an antiquated piece of legislation.
But it is required.
Yes, it's an antiquated piece of
It is
legislation,
required.
and it does,
It's required.
and it does not typically work that well, which is why most.
It has worked absolutely beautifully in this municipality. It's a small
Okay,
municipality.
Sorry.
Excuse me, I am
excuse me.
interested in what he has to say.
I'm letting Mr. Blackwell, sorry, I'm the chair, I'm letting Mr. Blackwell finish, okay? And then we'll take turns speaking, okay? Thank you. Mr. Blackwell, finish your statement and then we'll go back to Warren.
Thank you. So that has been traditionally problematic for many, if not all, municipal jurisdictions. So the legislation has evolved over time, with the provision of the development variance permit provisions in Part 14 of the Local Government Act. Most municipalities have a definition around what is subject to Board of Variance, what's the scope of a Board of Variance application versus development variance permit. There's a bit of legal gray with regard to question of hardship. How do you define hardship? All local governments are taking the best shot at it. Councils, in my experience, tend to prefer to rely on the professional planning staff for recommendations. And most municipalities rely on the development variance permit process. That said, both are available to an applicant to the extent that they comply with the specific provisions around what qualifies as a Board of Variance versus development variance permit application. The final thing I'll say is that development variance permits are far more expensive than what is permitted to be contemplated by a Board of Variance.
I'm sorry, expansive or expensive?
Expansive,
Expansive.
more, covers more ground.
And expensive too.
Okay, Morgan, back to you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ross. So my understanding of the Board of Variance is for a applicant to seek relaxation of minor variances, which usually have to do with setbacks, heights, that sort of thing. The odd shed being built in a side yard. I just don't understand why an applicant would have to go through the hoops of a development variance permit. It's being subjected to perhaps a lot more expenses because they have to cover much more ground. And also, if I'm understanding correctly, with the Board of Variance, neighbors within a 50-meter perimeter of the property line are automatically notified of a Board of Variance meeting up against that applicant. Whereas on the DVP, it's not necessary. So now potential problems with neighbors can arise. And neighbors are completely ignorant of this going through unless they come down and do what we're doing now. So those are my concerns. Also, I really don't think council has so much on their plate as it is. For someone to be asking for a relaxation for a garage in a front yard setback, just seems ludicrous for you guys to be doing that. The Board of Variance is a volunteer group. In the case of the Board of Variance right now, we have an architect, a builder developer, and a quantity surveyor. I think it's a great combination. We've had people come to the board with sketches. You know, they haven't been overly detailed, but numbers are on there. We've worked with them. We've rejected them on many occasions, asked them to come back, but we've worked with them. And that is what this community is about, is making this as smooth as possible. Not just simply a yes or a no from council. So I honestly feel that when somebody comes into the office, they really should be directed to the building department first. The building inspector does the plan review. He circles any problems with setbacks and heights, and then he defers them to the Board of Variance. That's the standard procedure.
Morgan,
Something seems to be getting shuttered or set aside somehow.
Morgan, we're running
yeah,
quite a bit over time. Appreciate your feedback. What I would suggest is that perhaps you come in and see the CAO, because I think the Board of Variance, definitely it's volunteers, fabulous group of people. I've met them all. I think there should be a discussion perhaps offline that allows for more than our 2 minutes or such here.
Great.
If I could,
Yeah, Mr. Blackwell.
just want to clarify the record for those that are listening. There are notification obligations, so property owners within 100 meters are notified of a development variance permit, as well as signage requirements also required.
Okay, Council Broughton, you have your hand up?
Just a clarification.
Council Allen.
So someone who's applying for a variance of some kind can either go to the Board of Variance or request a development variance permit. If they're successful in one of them or unsuccessful, are they able to call on the other, or is it either or?
Mr. Blackwell.
Thank you. So the Board of Variance can be appealed to council. DVP cannot.
Okay, Councilor Abbott.
Yeah, I had intended to bring this up later in the meeting after we discussed the Board of Variance was on the agenda. I wanted to bring up this discussion and see where the rest of the members of council.
Could I suggest that we do that at that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it is on the agenda and it will be coming up.
Great, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Morgan, thank you.
And thank you.
Anyone else in the gallery like to speak? No. Okay, anyone online? No? Okay, with that, we'll move on. No delegations, approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from March 24th, 2025? Okay, second.
Second.
All right. Any discussion, changes? Yeah, Councilor Abbott.
One on page 5 at the bottom of the page. We were talking about the BC Watering Meeting pilot project, and then there's a statement that says discussion on motion to ensued regarding the impact of this grant on fire smart initiatives and families. I don't understand that. I don't recall it, and there's no motion here to that effect. Can someone?
Yeah, Councilor Broughton, you have your hand up?
It was something that I raised in the discussion, but normally it would not appear in the minutes, I presume.
You fine with striking that then?
I'm fine with that, yeah.
Okay.
But it definitely was, you know, it was an example of a list of maybe 10 or 12 things that I had put into place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other changes?
No, that's all I have.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Motion, opposed, motion carried. Okay, business arising from the minutes. Council Broughton, you have a hand up?
I just would like to express a concern that we were in closed session on the 18th of March. And as a result of the time in the evening and so on, the meeting was adjourned or recessed. I'm not sure exactly how you describe it. But anyway, at that time, no decision had yet been made, so clearly the meeting needed to continue. I was startled when Friday, so my understanding, we were having closed discussions, there were items in the discussion. The reason why we were in closed was because the ministry had asked that the information be embargoed. But as part of that closed discussion, there was a number of questions that I felt were appropriate to raise in terms of my fiduciary responsibility to this community. Those items were not raised. And because we did not finish the discussion and the meeting was called at 10:30. That was a Tuesday night. I had a personal event on Wednesday, which caused me to not be involved with my emails until Friday afternoon. The first email that I read on Friday afternoon was the village update. And I found an announcement of the successful, the fact that the village had been successfully chosen, should council wish to go ahead, which I was quite frankly stunned by, because we were in the midst of a discussion. I then went back and tried to track back how something that was in closed session was being announced in the village update, and was very concerned. Clearly, as was shown the following Monday, I was supportive of the metering process and the metering program. But we were in the midst of discussion of that in closed session on Tuesday the 18th, and suddenly it was in open. And also there was an inference that somehow there was opposition, and in fact, we had residents come and ask how anyone could possibly be opposing this when there was no indication of any opposition to it. We had not finished the discussion. So I guess I'm just very concerned and would like to know how an item that was put into closed by this council was removed from closed, seemingly arbitrarily. I was not informed of that. And when I went back and looked through the emails, it appeared that Councillor Abbott was aware on Wednesday. I could check with the mayor, and mayor was not aware until Friday. And I'm not quite clear whether Councillor Cunliffe was aware. Her email that it seemed to appear to suggest that she was aware on Wednesday. But it's not clear,
Okay.
so I don't know.
Good.
So
Mr.
anyway,
Blackwell.
so I have concern about that.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell, any comments?
I will.
Yeah,
Yes,
Councillor Abbott.
Yeah, staff have explained the circumstance to us. I'm quite happy it's been explained. We have a lot on the agenda tonight, so I'm not sure why this is coming up again. It came up on Monday when we had that meeting. I would suggest that we just move on. I think it has been explained. The ministry changed their position, and we all got emails. I know you were out of contact, and I don't think we need to discuss this.
Okay. Mr. Blackwell, Councillor Broughton asked the question. Would you like to answer it? I'd like to also hear how an item moved from closed to open without council's approval.
For knowledge. Pardon me.
In a nutshell, if I could, I'd invite Mr. Bird away and if and when he so chooses on this. But in a nutshell, there was a conversation with the province as with regard to the funding, as council is aware, what was in the update did not convey specific information that was discussed in the pith and substance of what qualified for closed, was not discussed in the village update article. The province changed its position, which was due to the fact that it was not a regular award, it was a pilot project award. So their provisions around coordinating the release of the award information was something that they changed their mind on. On that basis, there was no legal basis to have that matter continue in closed. It didn't qualify for closed at that point.
Okay, Councilor Broughton, satisfied?
Village of Lions Bay Council placed the matter in closed. And the discussion, we voted to move it into closed. And so I just have real bit difficulty with this. In addition to the fact that there was no notification, I basically found out about it at 8 o'clock on the Friday night. And so in terms of respectful communication, that I had some real difficulty with that. And, you know, I immediately sent notification of my concern, and I really appreciated that I received a message right away from Mr. Burr explaining that he had been in discussion with a member of the ministry, and I've subsequently received a notification from you about 10 o'clock on Friday night saying that, you know, that nothing wrong had been done. But my concern was that an item which was in closed, there was topics in addition to the metering and, you know, discussions around that were in closed. And at least as a courtesy, it would have been appropriate for all members of council to have been notified. Clearly, Councillor Abbott sent a message at 12:40 on Wednesday night indicating, you know, early Thursday morning, indicating that he was aware that, you know, this matter's now in open. So anyway, I just would not, profoundly disappointed in that process,
Okay,
because I think it generated an impression of something that was not accurate, and I think it was harmful to our community.
all right,
A community that tends to be divided, and this became divisive when there was no need, absolutely no need.
all right. Thanks for that
And I
point.
apologize.
Mr. Burr, you had your hand up?
If I may just quickly, through the chair, just to, I want to repeat what I sent to you on Thursday morning. We requested that the ministry de-embargo the news so that we could produce a meeting that was either going to be Friday or Monday. We didn't know which. They did. I wrote a report on Wednesday and issued it on Wednesday night. This is how people who read the report knew. You flagged the village update, which was 2 days after the fact. The report was issued for the agenda of the meeting on Monday. It then explained very carefully what had happened. The news was no longer embargoed. There was no basis on which to keep it closed. We had to bring it into open.
Okay, Mr. Burr, I don't recall seeing that report, but we have had other meetings, and water meters aside, we've had other meetings where information was required to be voted to go into closed. And if council, even against the wishes of the CAO, if council voted that it go into closed, items would go into closed, and they would have to be approved by the council to come out of closed. In that situation, I was a little taken back to read in the village update as well. And and when the meeting was called at noon and the actual closed portion was flipped and the open went first, that was also unusual. So I think we're gonna have to keep our procedures consistent. So I can agree with Councillor Broughton on that.
Okay, well, if I could just try and wrap this up. It was a new report. It was issued on Wednesday. It was a report in open that laid out the open.
Where was that distributed?
I sent an email to council.
All of
It
us.
was
Yeah.
We all got it.
Mhm.
I know we're still talking about this. We all got it on Wednesday. Let's move on.
I agree.
We all got it on Wednesday. We were told it was open. I responded to it. No secrets shared with anyone other than all of council. Let's move on, please.
Okay, we'll move on. Next item is the development variance variance permit. Mr. Blackwell.
Thank you. The request before you pertains to property at 335 Ocean View Road. The request is a front yard setback to accommodate the enclosure of a carport and its conversion into a garage. The background discussion was set out together with the recommendation. Take any questions.
Okay, we started the discussion earlier. I think Mr. Gatto has brought it forward. When an application like this is made, does it go to does the applicant make it to the board of, just for my understanding, does the applicant make it to the Board of Variance, or do they choose to come to the CAO? And I guess, is this gonna be the future sort of a process here to bypass the Board of Variance and go directly to staff? Maybe you can explain.
Certainly. So it's not as conspiratorial as it's sure being made to sound. This is,
Excuse me, pardon me,
Please.
I object. I'm sorry, that was not appropriate.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell, back to you, and I see we had Councillor Abbott. I'll let Mr. Blackwell continue on, then I'll go to Councillor Abbott. Okay, Mr. Blackwell.
thank you. So this is basic planning protocol. It's set out in the Local Government Act, the provisions around development permits, the provisions around the establishment and function of boards of variance. There's municipal provisions around how each are set up for the Village of Lions Bay as per every local government. At the end of the day, provided that they whatever request is being sought either fits within the one or the other, it's up to the applicant to choose which they prefer to apply to.
Okay, Councillor Abbott.
Just a couple of points. First of all, I'd like to point out that what we have on the table is not a discussion about Board of Variance, it's a discussion about a particular permit. And I'd like to separate the two if we could, because I don't feel it's fair on this applicant that his permit application gets hung up in this discussion. We've had it for several, it was submitted 6 weeks ago. I'd like to speak to that first, and then maybe we can come back to with the future once you go to the Board of Variance. On the matter of this permit, if we can do it that way, I've had a good look at it. I do think it meets Board of Variance criteria we've seen in the past, so it could have gone there. It's a simple front yard setback. I've read the report. I think the CEO has addressed all the things in the report. One thing that wasn't mentioned was the front setback averaging rule, but given that these people's views is not towards the street, it's actually away from their houses. I'm sure there's no one that's going to be affected by that. So I think in this application, I'm in favor of it, and I'd like to suggest we do that resolution first.
Okay, any other comments? Or we make a motion? No. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, in terms of looking at the application, I don't have difficulty with the application. I would like, and I agree with separating it from the Board of Variance discussion, but I think it informs the Board of Variance discussion. So I'd like to just speak to it briefly here first. You know, it is a garage expansion. It's coming closer to the street. It does have a loft area above, which I don't understand exactly the use of that loft. I know going forward, we're probably going to be looking at more applications in the future of additional, I can't remember the three-letter abbreviation for additional housing. My sense is that there probably will be a number of applications where there will be some variance requested in order to have them make sense on the lot. My feeling about the Board of Variances is that they bring a kind of a wisdom to the the rules and humanize the rules and look at the application in context. We have some very experienced people on the board, and I think that typically what happens is that the wisdom they bring to an application often will make it a better application, will make it better fit. And quite often, my experience has been that they've said, "Oh, have you thought of?" And it's ended up as a win-win for everyone. So anyway, in terms of this particular application, there's a couple of things that stood out for me. One was the use of the loft and so on. But in terms of I don't completely understand its context, and I think it would be very useful for the Board of Variance to be involved in terms of informing the context.
Okay, we happen to have the chair of the Board of Variance here. If council is okay, he's got his hand up. Could we hear from him?
Can I just make a comment
Yeah,
that I
comment.
think it doesn't matter what the use of the loft is at this point. It could be for storing Christmas decorations.
Yeah,
We're just here to approve a permit, so I think that we don't need to dive into
okay,
further
no, I'm sorry, I
discussion about
was
that.
just saying in future, there may be
Then that would be, again, a
a
building
different.
permit
Fair enough.
application that would be,
Fair enough.
that would be crossed.
Yeah.
Okay, does council have any problems with Mr. Gatto? He had his hand up. Mr. Gatto, if you want to join the table just for a moment, or the podium.
I just wanted to thank Councillor Brown for, making that point about bringing wisdom to the applicant, because I would appreciate the CAO stop shaking his head, but,
Okay, we're gonna focus on the matter at hand. Okay,
so,
for
okay, the matter at
everyone, and-
hand is, I have nothing against this application, I think it's fine. Councilman Abbott brought up the streetscape, the views, I don't think it's going to impact anybody, there's quite a bit of trees in the area. I don't feel the application is actually complete, because if you look closely, there's about a 2-foot variance on the height as well. And if, I just did some very quick napkin math on it, the building is at or over height already, only because of the way it spills down the lot. And it's a very challenging lot. The Board of Variance, again, wouldn't have an issue with that because of the challenges of the lot. However, I think these applications should be as complete as possible so that there's no recourse back to the village at a later date. It could be a disgruntled neighbor that brings it up and went, hey, this thing got passed and it's overhyped, and now what do we do? So again, I think there's a need for people that are in the know to deal with this. And it's not a matter of just protocol and or running it through the hoops. I do think, like Councillor Bowden brought up, there is a wisdom that we bring to the table and we have discussions. Often it becomes a very interesting discussion. Most people leave with smiles on their face. Sometimes they have to come back, but we usually pass them in the end. And so I think the Board of Variance is the first go-to, unless it's a massive application that might require rezoning, and then definitely Board of Variance, or sorry, Development Variance for
All
no
right.
question.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all the time you put in, as the other volunteers as well. So thank you again. I would encourage you to get together with our CAO,
Sure.
building inspector, and have a discussion, and hopefully we can be in agreement
Very good.
how these move forward. So thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, back to matter at hand. Do we have a motion to approve this?
I'll put forth that.
Second.
motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay,
Can
yeah.
I bring
Councillor
up
Abbott.
on the fly here, would like to see if we can put forward a motion that the council direct staff to consider encouraging applicants to use the Board of Variance where there are simple setback permits, setback variances as has been done in the past. I'd like to put that motion forward.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion,
I'll just speak that I'm definitely in favor of that, as the CAO said, that if you get denied by the Board of Variance, you can come to council and seek another opportunity there, so it kind of gives you two kicks at the can, so it seems to me be in homeowner's best interest to have both avenues available.
good, all in favor?
Oh, sorry, I was gonna make one other point. One other point the Board of Variance do have is their residents, all of them fair, well, longer term than others that do understand the community. The community feel that the community wants to enhance and so on. I think that's part of it. And I think only the Board of Variance can bring that. No, it's not sad.
Good, okay, Councillor Broughton?
I think there definitely is a tendency to be moving away from Board of Variance in other jurisdictions. And, CEO is referring to it as an antiquated system. I think it's strong cultural component of our community, and it's taking advantage of the expertise of volunteers, which has served our community incredibly well. And I think that we need to continue. If in the event that it does become problematic, for some reason, Board of Variance is creating more issues than it's resolving, then I think council of the day needs to, take responsibility and address that. But I think it is a very powerful committee that we have, and I think we need to value the incredibly competent volunteers that we have in this community who do step forward and contribute.
Okay, great. Mr. Blackwell?
Thank you. I just need to point out that there is legislation, there are bylaws and policies that need to govern this. I cannot and will not, as a professional planner, I cannot ethically run against that obligation. The decision is up to the applicant. If the decision of what the applicant applies for, complete or otherwise, is solely up to the applicant. And I cannot and will not intervene in that process. Again, I have to be and will continue to be governed by the Local Government Act, bylaws, and policy, and that's what I have to follow.
Councillor Abbott?
The resolution that I did on the fly, then I've now started to write it down. It was to direct staff to encourage applicants, not to tell them what they can do. And the question is, Ross, when someone says to you, what would you recommend? Which way would you go? What is your answer typically going to be?
Mr. Blackwell?
It's totally dependent on the issue and how it fits with the bylaws, policies, and with the legislation. So all of these things come together to inform what the best approach is.
Will you mesh in the resolution that's being voted on
Well,
here by council?
I can't, as a professional, I can't encourage them to do anything. I can explain the process. The decision is theirs.
But you will advise them that council recommends what we just put forward?
I will advise them of the bylaw and the relevant information. That's as far as a professional, it's as far as I can go.
And you can inform them that they have two options.
Always, absolutely.
I think that's all we're really looking for.
Okay, again, it's unusual, but can I ask, the Board of Variance Chair has his hand up. Would council
I
mind?
just want to speak to how it took place in the past to clarify this hopefully. Normally, if an applicant is going for a building permit, the drawings are sent to the building inspector. He does the plan check. He highlights any issues that may require a Board of Variance ruling on it. And if it's a simple one, he then notifies the applicant that they have an opportunity to either correct the drawings to make them conform or make an application to the Board of Variance. If it involves something more intense, like building codes, maybe infrastructures and things like that, that concern the municipality, then automatically it goes to the development variance permit. But I'm not quite sure why our CAO seems to be getting in between the application and the building inspector. There seems to be some kind of disconnect, and I'm not in the office, I don't know what's going on, but it seems that the general simple ones, I believe you had one for a hot tub not that long, but like, my goodness, is this what you guys should be doing? So why is it, I've talked to the building inspector, he goes, I didn't even know this was happening.
I'm going to suggest one more time, and I'm gonna end this conversation, but I'll suggest that the Board of Variance get together with the CAO and the building inspector and have a little get together and sort through this.
So that was just the
Yeah.
protocol.
No, thank you very much for that. Okay, did we call the question, all in favor?
You did already.
We did, okay.
If I may, can I clarify the question, please?
Is there a motion,
Rob.
a motion that I put forward?
Yeah,
Okay, we'll read it again, see if we get a second. Even though the CEO has got issues with it. Council directs staff to encourage applicants to use the Board of Variance for simple setback variance applications.
okay, thank you for that. All right, next item is 10.1.2
So,
budget.
so I didn't get a second?
Oh,
No, we already,
Already did.
we did it.
No,
Let's move
Call the
second
question
and passed.
It was moved and passed.
okay. I thought
I
that-
just,
Yeah.
I just need it for the minutes.
It was clarification. of
That's
your
okay, I wasn't sure myself. We had
I
lots of
thought we passed the actual original.
Yeah, it was moved by Council Evans, seconded by Council
Okay, and all in favor?
I remember that.
Okay,
Okay, next item is 10.1.2 budget second reading, where I think we agreed to defer this because that hasn't been discussed in the committee of the whole. Are we fine with that?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Blackwell,
You, if you wish to discuss it here, the council certainly could. So you sort of combine the committee of the whole discussion with this, if you wish to do so. You don't have to, it's your choice.
okay, if we do that, we're going over to our committee of the whole agenda.
Nope, you do what you have been doing, which is other than. So if you recall, there's a discussion about utilizing committee of the whole for non-decision based discussion. What you're doing, what you can choose to do here is combining the two for this purpose. To have that broader discussion, and if council is so minded, consider granting second reading to the budget.
Okay, any council object to that? No, okay, Mr. Cherkoff, we'll hand it over to you. You can answer any questions or give us an overview.
Thank you, through the chair. On your committee package, page 17 of 79 has the changes from the previous version to the current. As discussed in the previous meeting,
Thank you.
the budgeted amount for legal expenses has been increased by $20,000. There's an increase in the Lions Bay Beach Park maintenance budget for design fees on McBray. A reallocation from EPC director fees to the fire chief salary, basically to get the fire chief salary up to 50,000. There's no net effect here. I don't know when or if we're getting EPC director, so it's just basically moving that up to facilitate hiring of a fire chief. And then
Sorry, if I could provide a little bit of detail for council on that. This was this number was derived from the conversation with the fire chief with regard to what is the right number of hours to constitute a part-time fire chief relative to the workload. 3 days a week was determined as sort of roughly what we're looking at, and so the dollar values associated with that represent what Mr. Cherkoff is discussing with you now. That's where that came from.
final piece was the trip of the universal metering grant, just from what was press released at 3.94 million. It was previously in there at 2.8, so that's its effective. It's increasing our revenue, grant revenue by $140,000, and then increasing the table below the capital cost for universal metering project. Additionally, we took out, as per the last meeting, the pH water adjustment that's been deferred, fire command vehicles have been deferred, and fire electric jaws and light cutter and shredder deferred. Those are the changes based on our conversation last meeting. That's, if there are any further questions, I'm happy to entertain.
Okay, Councilor Brown?
I'm just, there's a, sorry, I'm forgetting what the grant is, but there's a, I think it's a $20,000 allocation to, invasive species, the Invasive Species Council.
Mhm.
When that was a current, was it about $5,000, and then when was that increased? I don't recall that increase.
It was eliminated or excluded from the 2024 budget through conversations with council. It was reinstated in the budget for 2025 based on conversations with Sea to Sky Invasive Species Council, what their projected cost would be to perform the work.
And the work that they're doing is, they come to the community and,
They provide a report on invasive species, locations of invasive species, pulled plants, and their report. There's also a certain amount of money that's contributed from that amount to the Sea to Sky Corridor group to combat invasive species propagation.
so in 2024, it was 5,000, it was previously 20 something.
It was the last year that we funded them, it was 16,900 or something like that.
Okay.
And their current quote is 20,000.
And there was nothing in 2024.
We didn't send any money to them for 2024.
Councilor Allen?
Just to put it correct, in 2024, it was reduced to 12,000 in the budget for some reason. Council didn't agree to not fund them. There was a misunderstanding there. And they weren't paid anything for 2024, but the budget reads 12,000.
That was for allocated to just general professional fees, but nothing was paid to them or allocated to them.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one, which unfortunately has come up in the last 3 attempts to read this budget and it's still not changed. Page 15. At the bottom of page 15, it reads that March 18, 2025, approved danger tree removal budget request approved. Now, I know for a fact we did not approve the $145,000, I think it is, for danger tree removal. So I don't know why it says in the table it's approved. And I don't know why it's still in the budget.
I made the picture.
Yeah.
I was sure to confirm that at our last meeting that it would be included and not, I said, take it out, and he said, no, it should remain in, so it's been remain. Yeah,
I can say that I absolutely did not
I know you did not agree.
agree, and I
didn't.
I stood up and asked you specifically, should I take it out? All council.
I recall it being a.
Mr.
divide
Blackwell, I think
answer.
there was a discussion and on how to allocate that, if I recall.
So close the
My
discussion.
recollection was that it was the specific item was removed as dangerous trees, and but that the CAO expressed concern that he may need to spend funds on dangerous trees to remove the danger, and that I believe the funds were put into a contingency fund, but not specifically designated as it currently appears in the budget, as I recall.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell, any color on that?
Yes, that number is not in there accidentally. That's a number that we feel is necessary to account for the proper and our obligations around managing endangered trees. At this point, it is a sort of a reserve or a contingency, as Councilor Brown is referring to. There's no immediate plans to utilize that, but we do feel that amount needs to be made available based on what we reasonably foresee facing the community over this next several months. And if that money isn't set aside, council will have to find that money. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
I believe that the discussion we had over many other items over whether we would require, say, a full-time fire chief, for example, at some point, it's a simple matter of coming back to council and amending the budget. And I still feel very firmly that this is one of those line items that if the money needs to be spent, it's a circumstance where you come back to council to amend the budget, and we weigh that on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell, maybe you can just clarify, if there's a dangerous or hazardous tree, is it within your authority to remove those, or will you come to council? If it is in your authority, but you don't have funds available, how does that work? Because I'm a bit confused whether the budget is gonna dictate whether we remove a dangerous tree or whether, who has that authority?
Simply put, the provisions of the bylaw state that when a tree is determined to be dangerous, it's the obligation of the CAO to address the issue. So if that provision is in there, that is the responsibility of the CAO. The CAO needs to have some remedy to work from to be able to deal with whatever danger trees are identified. If I don't have that, then it makes it very difficult to discharge that provision of the bylaw.
Okay, Councillor Abbott?
I'm aware of a few danger trees that the Director of Operations has brought up. One, I've seen the dead one that's over the Alberta Creek water pipeline crossing. I understand there are circumstances like that when you need to take care of that because village's infrastructure is danger and that tree is dead. You don't need to waste your money on an arborist. So I would be happy if we put a budget of $20,000, say, to deal with those kind of circumstances. But if we need to do what the $140,000 budget was suggesting, I'm against it. So accept a reduction in the budget, but I'm not happy with this.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? No, Councillor Brian?
I don't think council has the scope to say whether or not we're going to respond to a dangerous situation. I mean, if a stop sign was missing and there wasn't a budget item for it, I certainly expect, the stop sign to be replaced. I don't know if that's a good example, but I think if something's a safety item, safety issue, and the professional staff determine that to be the case, then I think they need to have the capacity to do that. And I don't think it's appropriate territory for council to be in saying, well, I'm not sure that I agree with a particular safety call. And so therefore I'm not going to allocate funding for it. I just don't think that's in our scope. I don't think it's appropriate. So,
Okay, Mr. Blackwell, just once again, if you deem a tree to be dangerous, hazardous to a resident, are you looking for council approval or is that your decision?
The bylaw is quite explicit. I had our solicitor, actually it's a litigator, review it to see if there was any other way to interpret it. He was quite emphatic. He said, that's what the bylaw says. That's your role and responsibility. When that happens, you must address you alone. So the CAO alone is responsible.
So dangerous trees, hazardous trees are your responsibility.
Correct. Whether I like that or not, that's the case. That's what's in the bylaw.
And what happens if the council says, we're not gonna give you a budget to remove those dangerous trees?
I would have to come back to council. There's two options. One is to identify whether there was money that could come from any reserve funds that could be applied. If it was a larger matter and there wasn't the ability to utilize those reserve funds for whatever reason, it could be amount, it could be that they don't qualify, there would have to be an adjustment to the budget, as Councilor Cunliffe said, it would be amendment to the budget. That's not unheard of, it's not common, and organizations like to avoid that, but it happens. There are unforeseen things that happen. Councils do update and revise budgets.
Would a motion to authorize you to execute your role be needed here, or is that all in the legislation? It's not required.
It's a good question. It's clear in the bylaw. So there's nothing that, when council adopted that bylaw, it set up that provision clearly. So there's nothing further required to
Okay.
clarify that.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Cherkoff? No, okay, I believe you're looking for a second reading of Mr. Cherkoff.
If I may, for clarification, can we get a decision by taking it out or leaving it in?
I'm for leaving it in, but I'm just one. Mr.
Thank
Blackwell.
you. Just a finer point, I think would be wise to avoid a fender bender on this and not granting second reading. So to Mr. Cherkoff's point, I think there'd be value in council debating whether they want that item in or out. And based on that decision, it'd be reflected in the budget, and then consideration be given to second rating on that basis, if that makes sense.
Okay, Mr. or Councillor Abbott.
We've debated this twice at least already, and the answer was always the same. I see no reason to debate it again. And I will not be approving a second reading of the budget because on both those occasions, council defeated that request.
Okay,
Pardon me,
Councillor Brown.
council actually didn't defeat it, council did not pass it. It was a tie vote.
Yeah, Mr.
Just to
Blackwell.
be clear, just so the council's clear on what I'm saying, my suggestion is to debate, to consider including that line item in the budget or out. If it's in, then you grant the second reading to the bylaw as presented. If it's not included, it's move that the bylaw be adopted with the removal of, et cetera. That's sort of what I'm saying.
Councillor Brown, you had your hand up.
I would find it very problematic if we keep not moving ahead with the budget because of we're seemingly getting to semantics, perhaps, I don't know. If two councillors are prepared to hold up the budget on the basis of how the line items are presented, then I think we should adjust the line items to allow the budget to go forward. Because I think it's getting to the point of, this has now been multiple weeks
Yeah.
of this, and I think that we need to move through second reading. We had hoped to expedite on our budget process this year. And if that's a facilitating motion to allow that to happen, then I think we should make a minor adjustment to the budget. And
What are you proposing for minor
my
adjustment?
understanding in the last meeting was that we were going to put $120,000. Well, I'm hearing my learned friend here say that 20,000 would be acceptable, and that has a line item there. I'm suggesting that 20,000 go in the line item, and that 100,000 go in contingency as required.
Okay, if I may,
Mr.
for
Cherkoff.
clarification, so in pursuing that route, we'd be taxing for the $20,000 that would be added to that, the fact that you're also calling that going to reserve at the end of the day. So the $100,000 would be an appropriation from unrestricted reserves.
From reserves.
If council is so minded to create a reserve for this.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell, would that work for you?
I think it's wise having the ability, the financial capacity to take care of the issues that need to be resolved in the community. It'd be wonderful if the money was in an account and the goal was just to spend it. But that isn't the case. The goal is to be prudent and careful in managing, stewarding the resources relative to the workload that comes before staff. So my goal is to make sure we have the capacity to undertake the work that we are obligated to take care of. And so whatever mechanism Mr. Chirkoff is most comfortable with to make that happen is one I would support.
Okay. Counselor Broughton?
I prefer to have it a piece of the budget, in whatever way. The other councillors would be comfortable with it being there, that seems to me. Would that be, that would be removing it from the tax roll for this year, and I don't think that that's our goal. Is there a wording that you would be comfortable with?
No, I'd like it removed. Reduce it to $20,000 if that's an appropriate number. I just split all that because I've seen a couple of trees around Alberta Creek that I do know is an issue. But the other work that's been discussed, I am not in approval of doing. I'm budgeting for.
So you're putting forward a motion to remove funding for hazardous, dangerous trees.
Reduce.
I'm not putting forward any motion.
Okay, I'll put the motion forward
Or
to
you
fund.
Do you want to make a
I think
motion?
that the suggestion here, before we get into a motion, is to reduce that line item to $20,000. And then we could go ahead probably with second reading.
Yeah, Councilor Broughton.
I mean, 20,000 honestly is not very much tree work. And I understand the concern that you're trying to address. So I'm wondering if in order to try to keep our budget as close as possible to where we've been, what we've been working with, if say there was a $50,000 allocated to dangerous tree removal, because I think
Mr.
over.
Blackwell.
I don't know if this is helpful to council in the deliberation. It's hard to judge the cost of the removal of a single tree, but for sort of rough guesstimating purposes, I think it's safe to say anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000, would you say, Mr. Burr, is roughly the range that one can expect?
If I may, so I have 5 trees now, and I've just been totting them up in my head, they're 20,000. One is 3, 2 each, one is 5, and one is whatever, makes 20. So I have 20, I need 20.
Done already, yeah.
That's just
So
the 5 that I have.
Nothing more for 20.
Mr. Blackwell, we're kind of, we're almost trying to micromanage these dangerous trees. Is there any value in like, I can't imagine that if you identify a dangerous tree to one of our residents, that you're not able to fulfill the legislation. I just don't, that's beyond me. So this happened to council, I believe, in the first 6 months or there, where we had to consult with our legal counsel. And I believe the outcome was the CAO was obligated to take action if he knew of a dangerous situation. So I don't understand how we're either deferring to council here and we're micromanaging you. But like, I think the obligation is going to fall on your shoulders, unfortunately. Just to be totally blunt, it's whatever council says, if you're aware of a dangerous, hazardous tree situation, you need to take action on it. Yeah, Mr. Blackwell.
Just to finish off where I was going before I deferred to Mr. Burr. So, Carl, how many trees is that? 5? So we're in April and we will have consumed that $20,000 budget. So there'll be nothing left for all the months between now and next year. And that is concerning for me because as has been stated, I'm obliged to deal with danger trees, and certainly we can bring it back as an amendment to the budget. But that is a bit of a cumbersome process. So I just provide that to council for your consideration.
Okay. Councilor Broughton, I think what we need is a motion when we come to a decision here. The motion is to provide the CAO with authority to remove dangerous trees and to access the budget line item or reserves, as I heard Mr. Chirkoff.
Could I suggest
Yeah.
that we modify the current amount. We're not yet a third of the way through the year and we spent 20,000 and we have 20,000 committed. So I would suggest that likely we could be looking at near the $60,000 mark. So I'm going to suggest that we adjust the budget to $60,000. And so that moving forward with the budget with the modification for dangerous trees to $60,000.
Okay, and that's a motion.
That's my motion.
Okay, second.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Can we talk to it? first?
Yeah.
Um,
Councillor Abbott?
yeah, this is not a linear spend. The 5 trees that are critical have been standing there for probably 3 or 4 years or several years. So it's not a linear spend. We're not going to spend, we have to multiply the number of years by the first $20,000. So I think the 60,000 is probably excessive. Anyway, also like to point out, and we've been discussing this for so long, we're now in the songbird nesting season, so we shouldn't be taking down any trees, which is problematic. But luckily the storms are over, so maybe hopefully they can wait till the fall and get them down before the next stormy season starts. So that's been created by the fact we've taken so long to discuss this.
Okay, any other comments? No, all in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, Councillor Abbott opposed that. Okay, financial, the statement of financial information, Mr. Chirkoff. Yeah.
So if now council wants to contemplate second reading of the bylaw as amended by reducing that budget item.
To $60,000.
Yeah, then that would be a motion if
So
some
moved.
council was so.
All right, second,
Second.
okay. Discussion,
Second reading.
all in favor?
As
Aye.
amended.
As amended,
amended.
all in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, motion carried. Councillor Abbott opposed. Okay, we'll move to 10.1.3, 2023 statement of financial information. Mr. Chirkoff.
This is presented for information for council. This is a statement of financial information, which we can now file. It requires the audited financial statement to accompany it. So it has all the standard items in there. There are no anything new or surprises in this. It's just standard template. All it requires is my signature and Mr. Barry's signature on the schedule of severance agreements and the schedule about the suppliers, goods and services. So basically, it's just like that
Do we need to authorize that or do we set for information?
for information.
Okay, any questions? Comments? No,
No, I do.
okay,
So Joe, just this one number jumped out to me, and then I went to see this before, and then I went to look at some previous SOFI reports. On page 41, the amount this says there for school tax for $1,660,000. It's normally in previous years always been around $1 million, and it's normally around about 50, either side of 50% to 60% of our general tax, but this one is like 81%. It's 600. Was there a late payment or something, or?
Now, we keep up to date with our school tax payments. They get pretty unruly if we don't. I'm happy to provide you some detailed.
Why is it more than before forecasting for next year as well?
I can look into that for you and provide some background.
Okay. I had one other one.
Could I just pick up
Yeah.
on that? I don't know what is the school tax where there's the additional
Over a certain amount.
over a certain value, there's a surcharge. And I'm wondering if more homes have achieved that higher value. Is that something?
It's possible, because about 5 or 6, when they first introduced that, there was only a couple homes in the village that actually qualified for that additional. And that could very well have changed and shifted.
But we don't seem to be budgeting for it going forward. So you're gonna look into it for us. Okay.
Okay, yeah, just,
And another one was really just a comment for council. I think I think this Sophie report is a great document. I think it's one that, and I understand in some cases we've got detail we want to look into, Joe, the way your budget presented, it gives us option to look in detail and not. But one thing that kind of rounds it up for me is the end of your budget, the reduction or increase in various funds, that kind of thing is the kind of level that rounds it off for me. On page 58, there's this table I think would be good for us to look at in the future about our loaning. And you can see from this table that if we had not approved the CUB project in 2 and then actually in 3 years' time, we would have virtually no money being loaned. So to me, that makes the idea of approving the CUB project and the loan is a good use of money. We were just paying interest. And I think we should, when we look at our strategic planning, we should maybe discuss what is the right number we should be paying in interest on loans, because it facilitates so much more infrastructure spend. So yeah, that table showed to me, well, we're going to probably have an overlap for a year or so. And the CUB project's going to come on before those ones are finished in 2028. But it's a good timing to start looking at more loading, in my opinion.
Okay, any other comments, questions?
When would we be doing the strategic planning?
Blacklist.
Council.
That's just up to council.
I would suggest that there's an upcoming by-election, and as soon as we have another person in the seat, then we make that a priority.
Mr. Black.
If we could, you're a little over a year away from the election. There's not a lot of strategic planning we can do. So it's more sort of organizational priority setting, which is important. But I'm saying that just to clarify expectations, it's not the full Monty, it's sort of, what are the target
Planning
plannings?
4 years.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Well, and in the past, we've looked at within kind of 24 months, within 60 months, within 10 years, and then rated where those priorities are within those timeframes as well. So sort of a map.
Mr. Blackwell, I know you handed out I guess a strategic plan workbook. Have you received everyone's feedback on that?
No, not yet. And as I say, I think it's a little bit late now to sort of resurrect that. But there's a fair amount of work, and because of the amount of work that has to go into that, it's best done right at the beginning of the term so that council can ride that work out for the rest of the period of time. I think that ship sailed now, and I think the greatest value to council would be strategic priority setting for the next 12 months. And I think council's fairly aware of some of those key issues. Picking up, if I could, on Councilor Abbott's point about sort of considering loans, I see a natural synergy, and I'm not suggesting, I'm not promoting this, I'm suggesting it's an option for council to consider. But based on experience, I see that for a conversation like that, there's inherent value, potential synergy in a conversation between the members of the infrastructure committee and the finance committee to sort of talk about where interests align, where they don't align. It just populates that discussion more fully. And I think council might well benefit from a sort of more integrated discussion around financial management over the next 12 months relative to the infrastructure projects and relative to borrowing and various other things.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item, and that is correspondence 13.1, the ECOM 911. Councilor Brown.
I don't have any updates on correspondence, I'm afraid, so.
Okay, Councilor Abbott.
So we have a decision we need to make on this one. It's not truly correspondence. So we need to decide whether we're going to support Mayor Little's renomination to ECOM. I only have one question. Did anyone ask him? Because it doesn't say that in the document. But traditionally, we've always just supported the one that was current in the chair, so I think it's a pretty easy decision. We've never tried to challenge that or send someone of our own.
So moved.
He's reached out in the past, yeah, and he didn't reach out this time. There was discussion of the 911 and whether communities would take on those roles individually, and it was decided that would be very costly for everyone, so. So I'd support this. Do we look for a motion on this? Okay,
Council is so minded.
yeah, Councilor Broughton, made a
So
motion, second,
I'll second.
all in favor,
Yes.
Right.
opposed, motion carried. New business, we've got the mural and Councilor Broughton.
Okay, I have a motion to bring forward. We've received correspondence from Rebecca Montgomery. And essentially what's happening is the application will be stronger if it comes from and the feedback she got was if it came from a community organization and supported by council, with support of council. And so she has reached out to the Lions Bay Arts Council, who has unanimously supported the Two Sisters mural project for Lions Bay Avenue. So I'd like to make a motion that the Village of Lions Bay supports the Lions Bay Art Council as the grant applicant for the Two Sisters mural project on Lions Bay Avenue.
Okay, so do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor,
Yes.
Yes.
opposed, motion carried,
Perfect.
okay. With that, we'll move right to public questions, comments.
Sorry,
Yeah, Councilor Abbott.
maybe I'm wrong. I know, it's that committee of the whole. Sorry. I'm
Okay.
just looking what we
We're
wanted
gonna-
to add.
We'll go to public questions and comments, and then we'll adjourn the meeting, go
Yeah.
into the closed portion.
Yeah.
Switch,
Could I just pick
Yeah.
up on, earlier in the meeting, I was told that I'd received an email, regarding, the closed meeting going into open, and I have no such email, so I'm just, at a loss as to how I've not received that email, or perhaps it was deleted inadvertently or something, I don't know. Could you give me a reference as to when that was sent? I'm assuming it was sent on the 19th of. I know that Mr. Burr provided information for the agenda. It was included in the agenda, and the agenda was received at noonish on Friday,
okay,
When I
Mr.
checked
Blackwell
that.
or Mr. Burr,
so.
any idea when that email was sent?
The staff report didn't say, it was, in the report, it mentioned why it was no longer being considered enclosed.
Right.
And the report went out on Wednesday late afternoon
To. Who?
to council.
Okay, so that would be the 19th.
Yep.
Okay, did it come from your email?
From PWM, yes.
But Mr. Blackwell, correct me
Okay,
if I'm
I
wrong,
have
staff
nothing,
doesn't
I have nothing on the
close
19th
to
or
that.
20th from you, that's all. I'm just saying.
No, they don't. That said, if in the case of the corporate officer dealing with a matter that no longer qualifies, then they will put that on an agenda on that basis. Council can then choose, if it has other information, to move that item to closed for discussion. So again, this is about who controls the agenda, who, up to what point. So initially, it's the purview of the corporate officer. And then once it hits the council table, it's solely up to council. Corporate officers, no further involvement.
But when an item is enclosed, it should go to council, shouldn't it? That the corporate officer doesn't make that decision on his own, not, or at least we haven't in the past. You've always referred it to council. So I'm still confused on how you moved something, or maybe it was, I'm not sure who moved it into open without asking council. I just don't understand that.
So the topic was put on an open agenda because I couldn't put it on a closed agenda, didn't qualify under the local government act or the community charter. As I
But
said,
you moved items into closed before, because you said council was the decision maker on that. So I don't understand how you would, without consulting council, move something from closed open.
follow on, that's all.
Speaking through the chair,
Yeah,
could we move on and
Councillor.
maybe come back to this another time? We've got a lot of time tonight talking about this. We have some time deadline
Well,
issues.
just point of information, I don't have the email, I'm just not sure why I don't have the email.
Okay,
And
Perhaps
you know,
we can-
and had I had the email on the Friday, I would have understood why, and I wouldn't have been quite as affronted.
Going to move back into the open portion. I think that's what we decided. It's a little bit cumbersome, but. Okay, with that, we'll move right to public comments. There's no one in the gallery. Anyone online? No, okay, so we'll, a motion to adjourn, to adjourn this meeting to recess. This meeting to a later time.
To closed after the other
To-
closed.
Yeah, so motion,
I would,
okay, second,
Aye.
all in favor?
yes.
Yes.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, to the public, we'll be moving back to the committee of the whole open meeting, so you're going to have to switch links at this time. And we'll have a 5-minute recess, and at 8:30, we'll move into the committee of the whole open portion. Thank you.